Hello there. So in this video, we're going to be talking about the meta model. So what is the meaning of meta? So the Greek meaning is, it means beyond, really. So meta, according to the Cambridge Dictionary, is the act of self-reference. So when we self-reference, we're thinking about ourselves. So if we're thinking about our own thoughts, i.e. thinking about thinking, this process is called metacognition. And the purpose of the meta model is to assist us in using this metacognition in order to recover missing pieces of information that are lost in the process of communication. And this is something that Jason is going to explain to you as he describes the meta model. So over to you, Jason.
The meta model consists of three parts. It came about, the guys that started at NLP were modeling Virginia Satir, Milton Erickson and Fritz Perls to find how they got the results they were getting. And they discovered through these modeling exercises that we did three things. We deleted, we distorted, and we generalized. So some of the distortions that we do are things like mind reading. We have lost performatives. These are all technical names, but we have a cause and effect. We have a complex equivalence, and then there's presuppositions. So an example of each of those would be, for a mind read, you must think I'm stupid, would be the violation. So on the screen in front of you there, you have the column on the left is the title, the one in the middle is the violation, an example of a violation, and the one on the right hand side is a challenge to find out how they know and what, how to get the additional information from that communication. So you must think I'm stupid, and the challenge would be how do you know? So a lost performative is when the person that says the thing, making the judgment, isn't present. So he said, she said, for example, who specifically said, and how do you know? How are you judging that to be true? A cause and effect. So A causes B. So work bores me. Work causes me to be bored, is what that means in effect. And when you look at that again, you can ask the question, how does that cause that? So how does this cause that? So we have the cause and effect. On the opposite side of that, we have a complex equivalence. So one means two. So she never smiles at me, which means she doesn't like me. How does that mean this? So the two go hand in hand a lot of the time. One's one, one's the other, but they're very closely related. Just listening to the language in them. The clue for the first one is listening to the word because, and the clue to the second one is listening for the word means, or an assumption of the word means in there somewhere.
Yeah.
And then there's presuppositions. So when you presuppose something, you assume it's already true. You assume something's going to happen. So, for example, if you're going to go on a date with your partner, you say, "Would you like to have fish and chips on the way back from the cinema?" It presupposes that you're going to go to the cinema. Now, in this world here, you can ask, "How do you know?" Or you can say, "According to who?" Or you could ask, "When?" Any of those kind of things there would deal with that distortion of presupposition.
Thank you for that, Jason. So now we're going to take a look at generalizations.
So generalizations, we have a couple of those. It's when we generalize things, and we do that generalizing to make things simple for ourselves and create shortcuts. But have you ever heard in language people say things like all, never, no one, should? These things are generalizations. So the first few that I gave you there, all, none, never, nobody, they're what we call universal quantifiers. And they're what I call 100% words. They can never not be true. Otherwise, they're invalid. So you could say, Nobody at school likes me. And as soon as you have the example of the challenge of somebody at school likes you, the whole statement is then invalid and flawed. And the way you challenge that is we use the absurdity frame. And basically we repeat back nobody or everybody or always as an absurdity, which kind of makes it seem ridiculous. And by doing that, you end up picking out a time or one instance that it does not apply. And then we have modal operators. So modal operators are applied to our language and they just skew the meaning we put on it, basically. So a modal operator of necessity, otherwise known as a MON, these are things like must, should, have, need, they're a necessity. And then we have modal operators of possibility, want to, would like, explore, those things, options. Now, one of them will make you feel that you're kind of backed into a corner, you have no choice but to do this, this, and this. You feel like you're forced to. And the other one is you have options, you have choice. So a challenge for that would be what stops you? Again, according to who could do that? What are you comparing that to? So those are some of the things we can use for that.
I think it's worth noting with this that particularly with things like the universal quantifiers, always, never, nobody, and things like that, they often form the basis of a limiting belief. They keep people stuck in their behaviour, and very much the same thing with modal operators of necessity. I can't do this. I mustn't say that. I shouldn't do this. I should do that. They're all things that restrict what's possible. Anyway, moving on to deletions now.
In the deletions category, which is when we remove things, we've deleted information. So first of all, we have these things called nominalizations, which is the process of converting a thing that was moving. It's called a wheelbarrow test. So can you put it in a wheelbarrow? Things like relationship or communication, you can't go and buy a load of relationship or a load of communication. It doesn't work. You have to break it down into a process. So you put it into communicate. So they're processes that have been turned into objects, if in effect. So he's bad at making decisions is a nominalization. So you could challenge by saying, how could he better decide things? You put it back into a process, which is deciding. An unspecified verb, Peter makes things okay. Well, first of all, there's what things specifically and how does he do it? So there's two things missing there. Simple deletions, anything that you delete in any context without any specific thing, you've missed out a load of things. I'm not feeling well. How? Why? About what? All these other things come into it. Unspecified referential index. So these are things that are you're not clear about what's being spoken about. So before we talked about the person that said the thing wasn't clear. In this case, with the thing we're talking about is not clear. So some people will never get this. Well, which people specifically and what won't they get about it? And then we have comparative deletions. So a comparative deletion is when you're comparing one thing against another. So for example, it's faster, it's better, it's quicker, it's smaller. Anything you're comparing one to another. And then you can say, oh, really? In comparison to what? And then you could use also, how do you know, for evidence. So those are the deletion patterns.
Okay, well that gives you all a summary of the meta-model distinctions there. So just in summary, to be careful when you use them. We have these people called meta monsters out there, and they will go, "How specifically do you know about this? Who told you that?" And it can be quite, unless you're in rapport with people, it can it can be quite difficult. And on that note, I will leave you to finish this summary.
Yeah. So the purpose, just to recap again, of the meta model is to recover lost information, to help your client or the other person loosen up the model of their world, give them more options, and to ask the questions which are most relevant to those things.
Okay. I'd like to thank you all for watching this video, and I hope you found it useful.
Thank you.